When it comes to Nichole Good, I honestly believe that the likelihood of these 10 situations are somewhat designed. Let me show you what I mean. So of course, we've all seen the video of the interaction between ICE agents and Renee Good that resulted in her death. Now from this angle, it's pretty clear self-defense. She shouldn't have driven away from law enforcement, and clearly the agent had to move out of the way if he didn't want to get hit. So whether it was intended or not, she drove into the path that he occupied. Now I do want to be clear, this is self-defense. However, this is an unfortunate event that shouldn't have been able to occur in the first place. So why did this situation happen? And that's what I think is more important. How did we get to this point? How are these 10 situations allowed to occur as often as they are? And for that, I want to highlight an action and a talking point that I've been paying attention to for a while, just to see where this would lead. Now, this is the first thing. Over this entire year, we've seen video after video of protesters obstructing ICE. This isn't legal protesting, and it's everywhere ICE is throughout the country. There's example after example. Again, this is at every ICE protest all around the country. With this volume of obstruction, these situations are becoming constant, so it was inevitable that someone gets hurt or killed at some point, and I honestly think that that is, in part, intended. Obstructing law enforcement is not the same as protesting, so these guys, they've got every right to be on sidewalks with signs and chanting whatever they disagree with, but they're not actually allowed to block law enforcement. But these guys only get arrested if they escalate past obstruction. So why is that? Local police should be aiding ICE, not just to protect ICE, but to protect the protesters that are going to put themselves in harm's way. But you never see local police out here. So what happens if you don't enforce the law? Well, you end up with bigger protests. They start becoming more aggressive and they start causing more obstruction. And if we wanted to disincentivize obstruction of law enforcement, we would arrest every person who is obstructing their movement and have them actually face the consequences of their action. If people have to spend time in jail and incur fines, you're not going to find all that many protesters coming out to behave like this, especially considering a lot of these protesters can be found at multiple protests.
My name is Kat Abou-Ghazaleh. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois. And the Department of Justice is charging 6 people, including myself, with federal crimes for exercising our First Amendment rights near ICE's Broadview Processing Center. This is a political prosecution and a gross attempt to silence dissent, a right protected under the First Amendment.
This is the next thing. This is not protesting. Obstruction is not protected under the First Amendment. In fact, blocking the movement of federal law enforcement is a misdemeanor up to 1 year in jail, fines, and probation. However, leftist podcasters and politics have been conflating obstruction with protesting and sending the message out to the people on the ground that they are protected under the First Amendment if they block ICE.
Getting maced for simply exercising their First Amendment right.
When is it enough for us to be able to push forward, not only to protect constitutional rights, freedom of speech? We got people who are being arrested and beat up in front of the detention facility in Broadview.
You just watched congressional candidate Kat Abou-Ghazaleh get thrown to the ground by an ICE agent while she was protesting last week.
You saw what she was doing. She was just sitting there. There were people just sitting there.
I don't know what to tell you. She was literally blocking law enforcement. And here's a tweet from Illinois Congressman Sean Casten regarding this as a First Amendment activity.
I believe that we will win! Tensions spike as anti-ICE demonstrators come face-to-face with federal agents. Heated protesters try to block a federal immigration SUV as they hit the hood and yell at the driver, trying to reach the Broadview ICE processing facility. The SUV not stopping as emotions among demonstrators reach a boiling point after weeks of protests here.
Now, I want you to take note, by the way. Look at all the protesters. They're unarmed. They have posters. Some of them are former military people saying, I'm here to stand up for democracy. You have all these people doing it the right way.
So he shows the clip of obstruction, waits for the video to get to the normal demonstrators, and then says, look at these normal demonstrators doing it the right way. Not a word about the obstruction. Then watch where he goes with it.
Federal agents installed tall gates on Beach Street to block demonstrators from reaching the entrance.
Can we also just point out, like, how they're such fucking bitches? Can we also just point that out? Like, they literally can't tolerate any fucking dissent. God forbid 100 people show up at the ICE building holding signs and waving flags. They have a total fucking meltdown, and they're like, we gotta build a border. We gotta put barbed wire fence up, like.
So federal agents put up a barbed wire fence in order to keep these situations to a minimum, and Kyle clearly wants obstruction on their doorstep. Well, if only that dang fence was out of the way, maybe we could get some escalation.
ICE out of New York! 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 ICE out of New York!
Because you have like people like literally blocking these vehicles. And I'm surprised that people aren't like, you know, taking garden hoses and putting nails through them in a 360 degrees and storing them in like some type of like small case in their backpack and dropping them in front of tires of these vehicles. That I find very surprising.
Are we giving tips there? Because it sounds like you guys might be hoping for escalation. Maybe you want more of these tense situations that put people's lives at risk to occur. And this is what I'm getting at. Sometimes you need an icon for the people to get behind on a mass scale. And Nichole Good is that icon right now. That's going to give people across the country a false sense of justification to riot and cause damage. And that will probably create some obfuscation around the whole fraud thing. So what are the chances of getting an icon like this? Well, it depends on how many tense interactions we can create. So if the media never tells people not to obstruct, you're going to have some misinformed people blocking law enforcement. And if the police doesn't arrest people who are obstructing, they're going to keep obstructing. And if liberal podcasters and politicians are conflating obstruction with protesting in the First Amendment, more people are going to join the cause because now it's romanticized. And if some mainstream liberal commentators keep egging on this aggression, well, these protesters are going to continue to escalate. And if there are enough instances of escalation, someone is going to get hurt, and that might be justified when it happens, but it also might not be. The problem is these situations are constantly forced on ICE. You can go even further back to all the mostly peaceful protests where the media was high-fiving all the damage that was caused by riots. You can bring in a decade of media considering conservatives as fascists, and now people have something to fight against. And if you create division and tension and then start redefining what people's rights are and egging them on, to put themselves in harm's way on a regular basis, you may be able to cash in whenever you need to cover something up or just have a directional change. But tell me what you think. Does this sound too much like a conspiracy? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.